Hello, my name is Kristin Bensen-Hause. I teach English composition and literature at Broome Community College in Binghamton, New York. The title of my interview, I guess, here is Unwitting Wisdom, because I like to trick my students into discovering their own wisdom. And the process is unwitting to them. One of the first things I do involves confrontation, but in a very sneaky way. I just asked them, I came about the idea of confrontation through an essay by Bobby Jo Harrow called The Cycle of Socialization. And there's a really wonderful graphic image that goes along with her essay whereby she explains the ways in which we have been socialized. It's all she asks us to own the ways that we have been socialized, but first we have to acknowledge them. And she takes us through this very simple process from birth and acknowledges that none of us asked to be who we are. For example, I never asked to be Caucasian. I never asked to be female. I never asked to be the children or the child of educators. I never asked to grow up in a white, affluent suburb, and so on and so forth. All of these things appeared before I did. They all existed before me. So I have nothing to do with them, and they had nothing to do with me. I just kind of arrived on the scene. So in that sense, we begin with a place where we're all innocent. And then we go through the ways in which our families have been socialized, their values onto us, and their beliefs, and their mores. Then as we get a little bit older, we leave the home, we leave the family, we begin to get exposure from other external sources, doctor's offices, grocery stores, and then we go to school, and you can see how the cycle continues throughout our lives. And one of the ways that I ask my students to confront the ways in which they were socialized is with a chart where they identify elements of existence that are relevant to them, for example, gender, race, religion. And I ask them to brainstorm all of the different ways in which they received messages about this particular element. And then we examine those messages. And oftentimes through dialogue, I help them discover messages that they don't realize are there. I also do a lot of really risky sharing, in the sense that I am very real and I want my students to understand that I am human, that I have another life outside of the classroom. And so I tell them a lot of truths, my truths, that have helped create who I am. And in that sense, we establish trust, which is so key for unwitting wisdom. And then oftentimes there's a writing exercise attached to that, and they continue through the semester to examine those influences. Then reflection is always involved. After we do any activity, they have private time to reflect and process what they have just been through. And again, I mean, that's private. So once they do their private writing, then we do another round of writing, sometimes taking from the private writing, sometimes kind of taking another turn into writing that is intended for public consumption. And then we share, and then we discuss, and then there's more collaboration involved. So even though in the classroom, students oftentimes feel as though they're isolated, even though they're in a room full of people, they feel very alone. Very quickly, we form community through our shared experiences and through our very different experiences. And it's really quite enlightening for all of us to realize, even for people who have very different backgrounds, commonalities, things that they share. So I do a lot of dead air. Traversing. I do a lot of traversing between the public and the private, because even though we're talking about very private things, we can take and use our language to kind of couch private issues into public words. That's a little bit safer. And we do a lot of just traversing in general between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, so public and private. And it's just really, at the root of all of it, it's just about being genuine and being real and not trying to put on airs. I don't put on airs to my students, and I don't want them to put on airs for me. So in that sense, trust is high risk, but we achieve trust through a series of low-risk activities. And in the end, it'll often take the course of 15 weeks for the wisdom to come through, but eventually, I would say probably 98% of my students in every class end up having some life-changing kind of epiphany through laughter and dialogue.